coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. We have some rather extremely large news to report today. Iran was hit with a massive cyber attack against all their branches of government, even municipal governments, nuclear facilities, military, electric grid, everything. Power blackouts or power outages have been reported all over Iran. I do not believe every single place in Iran, but much of Iran. And we're going to go through this. We're going to go through the implications of this. And I'm sure you know who did it. We don't have to, I mean, Israel hasn't taken credit for it, but, come on. Brazil didn't do it, okay? So, we're going to go through that today, okay? Being a Bible-believing site, I'm going to do some praise, Bible-believing Old and New Testament. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. So, before we get going on this, I'm going to jump into the live stream and make sure we got sound and picture, and people are still coming in, so give them a chance to come in. That's only being fair. And here we go. Make sure we got sound and picture. We got sound and picture. I'm going to put a couple of really fast posts up, 2 of them in the chat. And again, we're waiting for people to come in. I'm a little early today, but I got up real early. The weather's real nice and cool now in the morning. I like it. Hang on a minute. I'm almost done. Check for typos. Okay. And I'll put my email address up there. And then we'll get going. All right, we got all that up. So, since it's Yom Kippur, it's not the real Yom Kippur. The rabbi's calendar is out in Gaga land, but they're calling it Yom Kippur, Day of Covering or Day of Atonement, whatever they go. It's a high holy day, and it really exists, but it's not on the date the rabbis call. So anyway, as I told you yesterday, it might be that Israel would attack Iran on Yom Kippur because it would be unexpected, and I said also Iran might be planning or may attack Israel on Yom Kippur also, which was done once in the past by the Arabs. So apparently, I'm going to guess and read in between the lines, okay? Israel may have seen that Iran was getting ready to attack us on Yom Kippur. This I do not know. It's a guess. And then Israel launched a massive cyber attack on Iran. And when I say massive, let's compare it to earthquakes, okay? This attack on Iran would be a 9.5 on the Richter scale, okay? We hit the legislative, judicial, and executive branches of the government. We hit municipalities. We hit the power grid. We hit the nuclear facilities, and of course we hit the missile bases and the military bases and the ports. We hit everything. It was probably the largest cyber attack to ever be anywhere in the world. I don't know how many computers Israel used to do this, but I would go in the thousands. It was probably, at least 50 or 100 people doing this in Israel. I mean, it was, a huge cyber attack. And it's coming, I'm picking this up from the Muslim pro-kill Israel Muslim news media that are even talking about it, and there's been statements from high-ranking officials, ministers in the Iranian government. It's real. I mean, I can't pick up anywhere that this is not real, okay? Now, news in Israel is rather weak because of the high holiday. A lot of people are not doing any posting in Israel, so I've got to get news from elsewhere. But there is some posting going on from Israel. But the Israel government has made no comments about this. And that is rather typical of them. And why should they? I don't take issue with it. They don't want to make a comment. Fine with me. Don't make a comment. It's okay with me. In other words, they didn't take credit for it. Now, Iran is, the Muslim media is, okay, it's Israel. The UAE didn't do it, So we should kick some tires around and talk about this, okay? Now, let's start with radar, okay? There's, like you have a truck-based missile launcher where you got a low-boy bed trailer on a tractor, and it's maybe 30, 40 feet, and it'll have some sort of a power generator, maybe the size of a cabinet in your bedroom or something like that, or two cabinets, something like that. It's not going to be a big generator, okay? When they run, and that's to run, radar for the missile launcher. Maybe you're sending a missile, 5, 10, 20, 50 miles, that radar might work, okay? Now, when you're talking about real defensive radar, you're talking about these big half-domed things that could be 100 or 200 feet across or more, okay, that are huge. And when they power these things, they power them directly into the electrical grid, big cables going in. It's actually dangerous for servicemen to be hanging around, standing for long periods of time. They have this radar, it hurts them, okay? These radars suck electricity like you have no idea. I mean, they need a power plant. So if you were going to build a generator to power these big domes, the real long-range protective radars, the generator would probably be, something like taking, 12 40-foot containers and stacking them in 2 piles of 6 or something, maybe even bigger. I mean, you'd need a power plant, So did they disable a lot of Iran's defenses? I would have to say yes. On some of their systems, I'm sure they have generators that are running on, I doubt solar, on diesel gas, but not the real serious stuff. It's just too much power. Okay, so is Iran rather in a bad way right now to be attacked? Oh yeah, oh yeah. When power goes out, communications are going to be impaired. Now, is this a devious plot to get? You see, if you're using hardwired communications, where there's like a phone line, right? It's not going through the air. It's like a phone line. Israel can't blow the devices up like they did with Hezbollah. It doesn't work that way, okay? But and most of these devices are not going to have a lithium battery. I mean, I think all of them would not have it. They're using power, regular power, like plugging in the wall, right? Hardwired power. So yeah, Israel can't make those things blow up. But when you blow the power grid, well, then they're not going to work. So then what do? Well, what do you think you do? You can do smoke signals, you can use drums, or you could use wireless devices like walkie-talkie, military radios, and cell phones, if you even got cell phone towers working. So it might cause them to go back to devices that they moved away from when we blew them up in Lebanon with Hezbollah. It would be either that or nothing, and then it's a possibility then we would blow those things up. This is speculation, okay? We see no evidence of this at this point, but they may not be reporting it in their news yet or at all, I don't know. They are complaining that data was stolen from them by this hacking attack. Secret classified data. So what would Israel be interested in? Their economic data? Nah. Their budgets? No. Criminal cases in their courts? No. They'd be interested in locations of what? Of missile launchers, arms, missiles, and other weapons storage facilities, secret bases, things like this. And it appears that we probably got it. So now the target packages could be completely revised for a lot more accuracy. Is there a possibility that Iran just put dummy data in there to fool us? I would go on that 10 scale being yes. I would give it a 1. I mean, I doubt it. I highly doubt it. So now Iran is using a vernacular phrase, caught with their pants down. It's kind of funny in a way. What do? Revamp their whole system and store things in different locations and shift everything around? Well, if you got 3 or 4 months, yeah, you could do that. If you got at most 3 or 4 days or maybe 3 or 4 hours, that's not going to help. Their S-300s and S-400s run their own small radar with a generator that's running on, diesel, and, so they're still going to operate, but they're pretty worthless against our jets. So the details are not forthcoming. I'll get them from Israel sources when the holiday's over tonight. But right now, most of the Israel social media is shut down. Is this likely to provoke Iran to attack Israel? No, the opposite. They're not going to attack Israel in the middle of a crisis like this. They're going to hope Israel doesn't attack them. Will Israel attack them? I don't know. This could just be part one of a 5 or 6 part plan to disable Iran. This may not be the attack. The bombings and the missile attacks and the drone attacks. This might just be prelude. Israel will watch and see what kind of confusion and damage was created, and then maybe do something else. I told you they would do things that would be unexpected. Surprise. They're not finished yet. Israel's not finished yet. Hezbollah was hitting a city in Israel called Herzliya. Herzliya is the Beverly Hills of Israel. That's where the millionaires and the billionaires like to live. Also in Tel Aviv. Herzliya is more like a suburb bedroom city. They got a lot of exclusive shops and stores around there and multi-million-dollar homes, And that's where the millionaire Satan bots are. And they're getting hit, and that, I don't think, is going over well with the Netanyahu administration, because those are their friends and supporters. I mean, these are the kind of people that can write a $50, $100, or $200,000 contribution check, no problem. Go to attend a dinner for $5,000, $10,000 a plate, or more. They're worried about these people a lot more than the regular people. They've also been hitting Caesarea, which has a lot of wealthy people there too. It's got golf courses. That's where Netanyahu has his private home. What kind of impact it has on the missile launchers, this I don't know. Missile launchers don't work like a gun where you pull a trigger and you hit a cap and it blows up and lights the powder. It's way more sophisticated. So they need electricity. So I don't know the full impact of how badly damaged they are. Have they recovered from the cyber attack yet or not? I don't know. These things, it could still be very much ongoing. It may take them Sunday or Monday to get over it. Now, you could take things offline and that ends the cyber attack, unless they embedded viruses in it. You see, there's computer systems that don't go on the internet. Okay? They're only going to work with a hardwired environment. But they have to make so certain that these computer systems never have any interaction with the internet to keep them sanitary. And that's hard to do. If one computer out of 20,000 got on the internet, it could infect the entire network with viruses. And to accomplish that, you would need spies, which Israel apparently has in Iran, that plant a replicating virus in these computer systems that are not on the internet. So that gives you an insight into how this could have happened. Maybe the virus told the computers to connect to the internet, if that's possible. I don't know. I don't know how sanitary Iran keeps their systems. I don't know. So today Hezbollah said they're going to attack Tiberias and Herzliya. So they're getting so bold that they're announcing their attacks. I'm sure Israel's going to do everything it can to thwart the attack. So I don't understand why they did that. They're just feeling their Cheerios, you know. They're talking large attacks. So, you know, depending who you read, we disabled Hezbollah around 50%. Some say 60%, or some say we've only disabled them 40%. But they're still able to launch missile barrages. It's a real nightmare to keep dismantling them because they spread these missiles all over the place. Houses, different buildings, you know, they're all over. We've killed so many of their key personnel, and they just keep, you know, they keep bouncing back. These are fanatics, you know. Chat's pretty quiet today. Let me cover our prayer requests real quick before we move on. There's a place having some sort of a fair. It's in Louisiana. It's called Poydras, Poydras, Poydras Fair in Louisiana. Give them a good toss, everybody at the fair, the owners, operators, and controllers of the fair. Give them a nice toss. And there's another prayer request I've got to get the name. Okay. This is a toss request and a prayer request combined for VA, Victor Alpha, VA, Victor Alpha, VA. Toss for VA and children. There's several children. Toss request for VA and children, and pray for their peace, safety, protection, and joy. Okay? For VA. Okay. All right. Let me get in my notes here, and we'll go. India announced that they're not going to play ball with BRICS and the de-dollarization. Now, this is huge. This is grandiose. Israel's massive economy. Roughly the size of China. India said that they're going to reserve the right to use US dollars to purchase things and sell things when they want to. But this is a real falling away from BRICS, and I don't know if Russia and China will throw India out. They previously said if you're going to operate on the US dollar, you can't be in BRICS. India tries to walk the middle path and do what's best for India and not take sides. And China has a lot of bad blood with India, and they might not like this. So I don't know what they're going to do. They may throw India out. I don't know. Now, let's talk about Israel hitting the Iranian oil and natural gas facilities, the ports, the piers, pipelines, the equipment that they use to load the oil and natural gas into tanker ships at their ports, stuff like that. One substantial port in Iran covers about 90% of their exports. We'll talk about oil. Iran, on average, pushes out about 1 million barrels a day. Okay? Some days less, some days more. At $70 a barrel, that's $70 million a day, or roughly $25 billion a year, or roughly $2 billion a month, which is enough money for them to fund the terrorists. You know, a soldier in Hamas or Hezbollah doesn't make, $100,000 a year like a U.S. mercenary guy would make, They probably make, like $10,000 a year or something like that, So, maybe less, 5,000, I don't know. In addition to their oil revenue, they also have natural gas. I didn't research how much they make, but it's substantial. It's in the billions, I'm sure. So they make a lot of money for nothing. And they spend it on a war machine. They're crazy killers. So Israel can cripple them financially. And that would stop them from funding terrorism. It would stop them from making weapons in wholesale quantities day and night and giving them to Russia, which America and NATO wants to see happen. It would bring Iran to a screeching halt. Which would severely impede BRICS. In BRICS, as we see it now, there's 3 players that are going to be selling oil. Russia, Iran, and UAE. Now, if Saudi Arabia goes in BRICS, that'll be another big one. Or if Kuwait goes in, another good one, So it's exciting for the 159 countries that want to join the digital blockchain money system of BRICS, because they don't have to worry about paying attention to America sanctions and stuff like that. So they're probably hoping Iran sells them oil at a lower price than the market has, maybe $10 a barrel or something like that, and they pay in digital currency. You know, so if we take out their oil and gas, it's about 1% of the world market. What it'll do is raise oil prices 10-15%, rather temporarily, I think, plus a few points for fear. So 15 or 20% rise in the price of oil if we took out Iran's oil. Now, that's highly sustainable by the United States. It's not going to put anybody out of work, or, you know, it's going to help with inflation, but life's still going to go on. Now, Iran is saying if they get hit by, you know, missiles and bombs and so forth from Israel, they're going to attack all the Middle East oil-producing countries. Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, although they may not hit Qatar, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. That would not cause oil prices to go up 15%. It would cause oil prices to go up probably double or higher. Especially when they, you know, when the world sees these, you know, countries lost their refineries and stuff like that, and it's going to continue for some time without their oil. Iran could knock off a lot of the oil by just closing the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman, and they could stop Saudi from shipping with Yemen and stuff like that. My floor is slippery from the mopping. I'm going to be back in a minute. I'll be right back, and we'll discuss the implications of the oil crisis that is likely on the way. I'm going to be going through several different things going on in the world right now today. And that's the build up to Revelation 6, which I think will help you understand more about where we are with Revelation 6, the seals. And that'll come at the end. The curious thing here, I did my research, is America makes about 20 million barrels a day from the shale, S-H-A-L-E, they started using. So, if Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Saudi, Jordan get hit by Iran, is it going to take down America? And their military won't have oil. No, it's not going to do anything to America. America can sustain by itself. America exports 5 million barrels a day, and Biden with the War Powers Act could stop that. Okay? Easily. Sweep of a pen. So the world could be crushed with rising oil prices, and America might go up $10 a barrel or something like that, you know? Not much of anything. Maybe not at all. I wasn't aware of that before, but now I am. Now that's not saying American allies in Europe and Asia aren't going to suffer. America might be able to divert some oil to their friends like South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Philippines. They might have their own oil in the Philippines, I'm not sure. And maybe help NATO. And there's always going to be some oil floating around that is not in the Middle East as well. So, the bottom line for the immediate future is America might not really give a hoot if Israel hits Iran's oil and gas. I think they'd rather like it. Now, I know what Biden is talking about, but remember, Biden's a liar. And what comes out of his mouth is not anything that you should consider to be the truth. Okay? They're actions. Okay? The cyber attack happened in the evening when everybody went home from work in Iran. So they had to call the people to come back to work in the nighttime to try to get up and running. The odds are high they'll eventually recover from the cyber attack, in other words, get their systems up and running. But if viruses were implanted into their systems, you may never, these self-replicating viruses and stuff, you may never get rid of them. They embed themselves all over the place, and you might have to just purge, or you might say reformat the computers, wiping the data and starting over. So you have the hardware, but you don't have the software. Now, maybe they have backups that they could find that go back a week or 2 weeks before the viruses were inputted, but that's unlikely because they probably update once or twice a day their backup. So they're screwed. As I see it. Now, I don't have the intimate details of how the attack went down, so maybe it was just internet, but I don't think the extent of this is too great to be just internet. Nobody wants to put their grid out on the internet to be attacked. I mean, you gotta protect it better than that. So there's trouble in Iran right now. And their missile launch capabilities could have been severely impeded, as well as their ability to defend themselves, which isn't very good to start with. Will they try to recover and missile attack Israel? Maybe. Will Israel give them a chance to do that? I seriously doubt it. This is the beginning of the hammering down in Iran. BRICS wants to kill America economically. If BRICS pulls this off at their meeting October 22nd to the 24th, they're going to bring new members into BRICS, likely Saudi Arabia. So they'll have Kuwait and Saudi Arabia in there. They may bring in Oman and Kuwait, I don't know, and Bahrain, I have no idea, Qatar, Jordan, I don't know. I really don't know. Probably bring some of them in anyway. And then there's 159 countries that want to use their digital payment system. And they're going to insist that these people don't use the US dollar, or they won't let them use the system. So probably half of them will fall out, but there might still be, 75 or 80 of them in. So the demand for the dollar is going to go down. And the value of the dollar is going to diminish, and the United States isn't going to be able to service their debt to the Federal Reserve. They're not going to be able to meet their budget. I mean, they're going to have to spend so much more money. Their military-industrial complex is probably going to go bankrupt. So they're not going to have the money to run all the aircraft and the aircraft carriers and the submarines, and all that stuff's going to get critical. They'll have to cut back their budgets for the military. The value of the dollar will go down so bad because of the drop in demand due to BRICS and the incredible amount of debt that America has, and they're going to try to just keep running the debt up to keep their military industrial complex running. And you might find yourself having, if you want to go buy a loaf of bread in the store, you might wind up paying $29 or $69 or $99 or some crazy thing like that. Which in history happens to a lot of people because like the largest bill won't be $100 bill. Initially it might be a $200 bill, then a $500, then $1,000. And then you might start seeing people running around with $10,000 and $100,000 bills because of inflation, bad inflation. When you have inflation, wages never keep up with inflation. Okay? The value of the dollar could go down easily 40, 50%. Here's a case in point. They just announced what they're going to do for an increase in Social Security next year. 2.5%. Now this is robbing from the old people and the disabled people, widows and orphans included, because they don't contribute to society. They just drain the economy. So they don't care about them. It probably should have went up 12 or 15%, at least 10%. 2.5% is a joke. So let me put it in perspective and show you what a farce this is. A lot of people don't get much in Social Security. There's people that get about $1,000 a month. So 1,000 times they're going to go up $25. That's a joke. Somebody that does well in Social Security gets $2,000. They'll go up $50. So they're robbing the Social Security people. In other words, they're reducing their payout by failing to meet inflation. They just put as little as they possibly could in as an increase just to make it look like they did something, but they did as little as they possibly could. 1% wouldn't play well. So they went up to 2%, and then to make it look confusing, they added 0.5%. Okay? If BRICS goes, America is doomed, and America knows it. Ukraine is taking out Russia with the help of NATO weapons, and Israel is cleaning up the Middle East with the ultimate goal, Iran. Notice it's coming to a head just before October 22nd. Once they tell Ukraine use the long-range missiles to attack in the Moscow-St. Petersburg area, and then you've got Russia in full-scale war. They're already finding and capturing North Korean troops in Ukraine, seeing their dead bodies and capturing soldiers from North Korea helping Putin. North Korea provides weapons to Putin, drones, missiles, so does Iran. So Putin goes and shows up in Iran the other day, I don't know, Thursday or whatever it was, right? And everybody's saying, oh, Putin's going to fight with Iran. Don't kid yourself. Listen, all that was is for the news media. Putin gets on the plane, flies to Iran, not that much time to fly there. Gets off, goes in, shakes hands, makes a speech, goes to the bathroom, gets a cup of coffee, gets on his jet, and goes home. So it takes him several hours. Maybe the whole thing took 10 hours or something. And it's supposed to scare America and Israel. That's all it is. He's not in any real position to go fight in the Middle East. He's in too much trouble with Ukraine. Ukraine's destroying Russia, and Russia's destroying Ukraine. America and NATO are using a proxy, Ukraine against Russia, and Russia's fighting directly. Now, I watched an interview, and I put this up on my Telegram, of a guy that was, I believe his position was, he was like what they call in a lot of federal agencies an SAC, which means special agent in charge. So if like a Homeland Security or any FBI or some federal agency has an office in Jacksonville, Florida, they have an SAC that runs the Jacksonville office, and then they have an ASAC, an assistant special agent in charge, which is his number 2. So in a sheriff's department, it would be, you got the sheriff and the undersheriff. The sheriff goes to the meetings of the different clubs and groups and country clubs and politicians and media, and the sheriff has got his plate full typically with, you know, public relations. Now, if you're in a department that's like 200-300 men, the sheriff actually works. If you're in a department with 3,000 deputy sheriffs, he's a politician. Even 2,000, he's a politician. At 1,000, he's probably 70% politician, 30% working. Okay? Little departments that are, you know, 2, 3, 4, 500, the sheriff works a lot and also does the politics. So this guy was like an assistant SAC someplace down by the border with Customs and Border Patrol, and he left the job. I think he retired or he disabilitied out or something. So he was not a special agent in charge, he was number 2. But, you know, he sees all the intel and the classified stuff they get from other agencies, you know. He said that there could be 50 million illegals in America. As his high figure, 50 million. As his low figure, he said 30 million. Now, he said that FEMA is running out of money because they give money to the NGOs, who then give the money to the illegal aliens, or the people that entered in illegally and then became legal by registering. So he says that they give this money to the NGOs, who then support them like that, and that's why they're out of money and they can't help the Americans. He also was saying that the Border Patrol agents have a very high suicide rate because the people that are running the agency are calling them by nasty names. In other words, you've got people that are in the White House and the real controllers of the country hate these law enforcement guys because, well, it's like the people that come in here and, you know, talk nasty about me in the chat because I'm a boomer and stuff like that. They hate them. because of the old values. It reminds me of the 60s with the hippie days where they were resentful of older people because the older people didn't want to take LSD and pot and go psychedelic and be a hippie bum and, stuff like that. We used to have a saying that was kind of a joke, which said the hippie got happy, hepatitis, because they used to get sick. They would, they would. It was most of the people that were hippies got out of it, but it went on for years. It started around '66. It peaked, I would say, '67 and '68. They were forming communes, which was very much like a kibbutz or a moshav, where they would get themselves a piece of land somehow, and they would all go live on the land and work the land, and then try to sell the product, which could be milk, corn, wheat, whatever they were growing. And some of them actually made it, but not many. Most of them fell apart because they weren't structured correctly. In the middle of this, the people were into meditation, yoga, marijuana, not too much alcohol, but I imagine they had their fair share of wine and beer. And they tried to eat what people back then thought was eating healthy, which people didn't have a great idea of what that entailed back in the 60s. I lived through it. They didn't. I was never a real hippie. I was like a deputy sheriff, stuff like that. So they never really got it together. So I would say by 72, it was pretty dead. By 74, 75, it had rigor mortis. So it was a very brief period of time. The people got hung up on San Francisco, and I never figured out why. I was pretty familiar with the San Francisco Police Department because I was a deputy sheriff very close to them. And they were tough hombres, There weren't very many women police at all, and I mean, they had like the juvenile division and maybe narcotics had some women, but that was about it, And they'd go to the motorcycle cop out doing traffic, they'd come on the air, there's a bank robbery. San Francisco had bank robberies back then. It was a rough place. And they would, by himself, he'd get on his scooter and shoot over to the bank. He'd probably be the first one there. He'd get off the scooter and, grab his gun and try to see what was going on, tough guys. And going to a bank robbery in progress by yourself with just a revolver is a little hairy. You've got 6 rounds. Sure, you can use a speed load and reload, but that takes seconds. And people robbing a bank are going to be at least 2, but it could be 3. 4 is a crowd. It could be 2 and 3. And now you got to go up against 2 or 3 armed guys with a 6-shot revolver. Well, that's a little on the hairy side, They would do it. So this guy, Scott McKenzie, sings a song, if you're going to San Francisco, wear flowers in your hair, because there's a gentle people there. And all the hippies were going to Haight-Ashbury. I remember the corner, Haight and Ashbury, And they'd go there, and they were living in the streets, and they'd go to the park nearby, Golden Gate Park, and live in the park. And, the cops were being very mean to them. They didn't want them in the city. The people didn't want them there, And they collected a lot. They collected health. They would have party, what would they call it? Live-ins, or love-ins in the park with music. the Grateful Dead or Jefferson Airplane or other local groups that were very popular at the time would play for free. And, the whole place was on drugs, and the Hells Angels would come around, you know, and they would, they would strong arm the people, but not that badly. They seemed to get along with the hippies. And they would say, hey, you got a joint to the hippies, and, but they would do it in a strong arm kind of way. So the kids would give them free pot. And then I would guess they were frequently raping the girls, the hippie girls. And when I say raping, I mean, being nice to them, and then if they could get what they want by being nice, all the more power to them. They would like that better. But if they couldn't, they would just get her away from the crowd and force it, And the girls didn't report it, And anyway, so much for the hippies. But so the illegals is much worse, according to this guy, and I think he knows what he's talking about. Now, this is what he said. He said that while he was talking, there's a huge caravan coming in right now from Mexico. He showed videos of it. And he said the amount of military-age males is between 60 and 70%. So I've been using the 70% figure. He's been saying it's 60 to 70%. He's probably more accurate than me, not that I was far off. I was using the figure that Trump said, where there's probably 20 million of these migrants or illegals, wherever you wish to call them, in the United States. He's using a low number of 30 and a possible of 50 million. It's insane. Like I told you, I think Biden, referencing Obama, wants to change the face of America and let these people in and push America all the way over into a heavy-duty left wing and possibly Sharia law. But not all these people are Sharia law Islam people, So they just want to, I think, Obama just doesn't like America as it is and wants to change it, into a haven for people of the world. And he was not astute enough to understand that the military-age males were going to come in and, overthrow the military. I don't think he thought of that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he's Looney Tunes, as is Biden, and may not have considered that, or maybe he figured they would rise up and get suppressed and that would work out. I don't know. Now, this is what this guy from the Border Patrol said. The election is not many days away. I think it's November 4, November 5, something like that, right? If Trump wins, and let's be real, that's a very, very distinct possibility, right? I mean, the worst possible case is Trump has a 50% chance, I think, right? The best case is he's probably more like 55 or 60 or 62% or something. It's, if he gets in, this guy said that you've got a lame duck Biden situation. And they might want to see Trump fail. So basically, Biden just leaves the door open until Trump closes the door, which should be around January 20th. So he said that you would see a colossal surge between Election Day and Swearing In Day, January 20th. Oh, I might be off 1 or 2 days, but it's right around the 20th. And he's talking maybe 10 million more illegals will come in. Because they know that as soon as Trump is in, he's going to start rebuilding the wall, making new walls, patrols, he's going to cut the first thing he's going to do is stop new immigrants, and then, you know, then he starts purging the already here immigrants, out of the country. And look, if the numbers of what this guy is saying, using his low number, 30 million, Trump will never get him out in 4 years. I'm rather sure they're going to uprise against America and attack the military bases from the Chinese land that China has bought next to the bases. And there's so many of them, it's not going to be that hard. Now, I don't know when they're going to get unleashed. I think China has a voice in that's big, and Russia has a voice in that's big. A lesser voice would be Iran, and then probably lesser than North Korea. Countries like Belarus, Venezuela, Cuba have a voice, but it's tiny. In other words, if Venezuela calls Xi Jinping, from China or Putin on the phone, he'll get to talk to them, but they're not going to let him, insist on anything happening. He could make a request, and that'll be very cordial. They'll thank him for his input and tell him they'll get back to him, and they will. But they're not necessarily going to listen to them at all. It's a dangerous game to turn the sleeper agents loose on America, because if they don't prevail fast and hard, America is going to start bombing them, So this is very distressing with the Border Patrol guy. And the suicide rate of these agents is incredible. He said that if Trump wins and Trump gets sworn in, he says the Border Patrol agents think it's going to be the ideal job, because Trump's going to shut the border immediately, and then he's going to move them to the cities where these illegals are, and they're going to go in large groups and just start rounding them up. But how many can you do? I mean, they got to round them up. They got to verify who they are or who they're not. Put them someplace in custody. In a lot of locations, the local sheriff who runs the jail may refuse to let them in. No, I don't want your prisoners in my jail, So they'll be rounding them up. And that's going to take years, guys. They got to process them through the courts. The countries they came from are going to not want them back. A lot of them, they're not going to know what country they came from. They're not going to cooperate. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's not going to take 4 years. It's going to take 10 probably. Because they're not going to be just standing around on the street corner wearing a sign, I'm an illegal alien waiting to be deported. They're going to stay off the streets. what if they're on this private land that China owns, and then they got to go get on the land, and they might have hidden underground buildings, and they might have structures underground that these people are hiding in, where you can't see them or find them. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but the Border Patrol guys are going to be real happy because there's going to be a lot of arrests. There's probably going to be some resisting that they'll be shooting and hitting and beating, and there'll be plenty of overtime. When you do your overtime starts, I think your first 8 hours a week or something is time and a half. Then, or maybe it's 4 hours. I think it's 4 hours a week. If you go more, it's not time and a half, it's double time. And then if you're on that extra overtime plus a holiday, like Thanksgiving or something like that, you get triple time. So they make out real good. They start bringing, checks home in excess of 10,000 a month gross. So yeah, they'll be happy. They'll be real happy. And they're going to try, but the task is just monumental that it just would take many years. And Biden would likely turn the heat up. For Trump, and allow as many to come in as he could to make it harder for Trump, make it look like Trump failed at the end of his term. Thought on pagans, and there's tons of these demonic people in America and other countries. What are you gonna do about that? Oh no, can't type the name of the Messiah. I can, I just typed his name. I can type the name of Father God too. Anybody else's name you want me to type? Okay, let me get back on my notes here. So you guys need to learn that the BRICS thing is a fatal blow to America. And that's why America will do anything to stop it. And you got to remember that what America, the politicians in America say, what comes out of their mouth, is not necessarily true. Or you're going to be confused. You're going to think Biden really doesn't want a war with Iran, where October 7th and forward was about getting Iran. Iran and Russia and China and North Korea are trying to kill America. And they know it, and they're not exactly interested in turning America into a third world country. They got all their real estate, their businesses. They don't want to see that happen. They don't often talk about BRICS as such a serious threat to America, but that's what's behind this business with Iran and Russia. That's what it's all about. The churchianity people support Israel, don't they? Oh yeah, TBN and all of that. They're all talking about, America should stand behind Israel, bless those that bless you, curse those that curse you, and all this stuff, right? And do they mean it? Yeah. Why? Because they know Islam will wipe them out. It's just a matter of time. If America goes to Sharia law, their churches and their meeting places will be closed. They'll be forbidden to continue it. So they're pro-Israel, but they're pro-fake Israel. They want a leader in Israel that's not serving Jehovah. They don't want to see the two witnesses running Israel as the judges. They don't want to see a temple with the glory God of Israel. They don't want to see Israel serving Jehovah. They want to see the same mess that's been going on all along. And they don't want to see Islam get any stronger. So they'll sit there and talk to you and be very pro so they're looking like they're pro-Israel, but they're not. They don't want to see a real Israel. They want to see the fake Israel. That's now sinful Israel, steeped in sin. The Talmud, the rabbis, the incredibly off calendar. It's off by about 250 years. The abortions, the immorality, these what kind of parades through Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, the rights for these people, all of this nonsense, That's what they want to see sustained. So yeah, they're for destroying Hezbollah and Hamas and all. Yeah, absolutely. Because they know if they grow enough, these entities will clobber you. Okay. The only chance that churchianity has, if things continue the way they have been in America, for the last 150 or so years, where the churches are allowed to flourish, and Islam is not going to allow that. Now they don't have an axe to grind with Hindus or Buddhists because they do absolutely nothing to get rid of churches and kill Christians. They don't do any of that. So BRICS is, a path to dominating the world through the economy. That's what BRICS is. And I don't think BRICS is going to make it. I could take questions if anybody has questions, but in the absence of questions, I'm going to just take us into Rev.6 and go through that with you. Let's see if there are questions. Um, I doubt anybody's going to help you because we don't know who you are. So you want to come here and put stuff like that up? Go ahead, but nobody's going to help you because there's so many imposters that come in here and try to do that. It gets rather sickening, and they're not going to do it. Okay. Let's go to Rev.6, verse 1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. So who is that? Oh, that's a hard one. Probably America, but, probably. Because after World War II, they went around, let's assume this is starting up when Israel happened in 1948. So America was the one running around conquering. Nobody else, really. Russia, not so much, a little. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow and a crown, and was given him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. So I would go with Daughter of Babylon on there. Because the whore gets all the nations corrupted. It would be abominations. So it would be America, I would think. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and a bow was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. Now, this is where I think we're at today, getting ready to go into this. Peace taken from the earth. Yes, Ukraine and Russia have been fighting a couple other skirmishes, but nothing like what you're about to see. So I think that we're ready any minute to go into Revelation 6:4, take peace from the earth. So this horse was red, which reminds us of blood, and the one that sat on them was given to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. So he wasn't really a nation per se, so you don't always have to make it into a nation, So maybe the first beast isn't really a nation, or maybe this is a nation, and it might be America again, I don't know. It might be Russia or Iran, I don't know. We're not here to identify the countries, we're here to understand the events, and we're about to see peace taken from the earth. And now we're in verse 5. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his 125 countries. They're going to be destroyed. The people are going to have to go into captivity. It says that in prophecy too, because of what they did to Israel is going to happen to them. And they reap what they sow. And that's going to cause famine. How could it not cause famine? It's basically kind of saying that you're going to have to work all day for a measure of wheat or 3 measures of barley. So you're going to go to work all day and you're going to get enough food to make it through the day, and then the next day you got to go do it again. And then, you every day, if you don't work, you don't eat. Now we're in Rev.6, verse 7. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him, Death and Hell, followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with sword and with hunger and with death and with the beasts of the earth. The beasts of the earth, if there's a food shortage, and it says here, kill with hunger, which would mean famine or food shortage, the beasts start attack their regular prey isn't there, so they'll start attacking people when they're starving. Okay, now a deer or an elk is probably not going to attack you because it can't eat you, but the carnivore animals, the predators, will. A fourth part of the earth. This could be Islam, easily. That's probably about a fourth part of the earth, isn't it? China's not Islam. India's not Islam. Russia's only partially Islam, just like China, just like India. So, South and Central and North America is not really Islam. Asia doesn't have much Islam. Africa has some, but not that much. So it's likely Islam. I don't know who else. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. Now, I think here, as you'll soon see, this is coming into the days of the beast, so it's decades down the road. And the fourth part of the earth can also be down the road, too. It could be where the beast kingdom is in Cyprus, and well, that's not enough, but I'm not sure. But this, I think, now with the souls of them that was slain for the word of God, for the testimony which they held, I would think now we're in the era of the beast. I don't have a better way to explain that. It's not for today, I don't believe. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy, true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth?" And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. So this is probably the time running to Gog and Magog as I see it now, okay? And I'll give you the kicker for that too. Now he goes on, as I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. Now, that's probably the great earthquake in Revelation right after the two witnesses rise to go back to their Father in heaven. A great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became, wait a second, the moon became as blood. Okay, so no, we're headed into these days now. So this thing where it says here, a lot of believers are getting killed, I am having trouble placing that into times like today till the appearing of the sign of Yeshua. I'm not seeing this happening because we're already in recompenses. So I don't know how to put this together because I can't find any scriptures for that. So this is maybe just going back many years. I don't know. But it does seem like there's some recently getting killed. We have to look at it that way too. When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. So they're already dead. But then it says, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season until their fellow servants also and the brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. So it doesn't actually show us any of them getting killed at this time. They're there, okay? And it's telling them just rest until others be killed. But that could be in the Great Tribulation. Because he's telling them to rest. So that's going to come later. So that's consistent with what I just said. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Now that's the sign when Yeshua appears. Now it takes us to the end of Gog and Magog, or the end of the tribulation, because it says, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. Now, and then it says, and the heaven departed as a scroll, when it is rolled together, and every mountain and every island moved out of their places. And this is basically showing us the new heaven and the new earth, which happens when Yeshua comes to earth. The next appearing is him in Revelation 19, coming with the armies of heaven on white horses with swords, and his clothing has the color red from the winepress, and the beast and false prophet go into the lake of fire, and all of this, okay? So at that point in time, probably just before that, we have the new heaven and the new earth. So when New Jerusalem comes, it's probably going to be connected to Mount Zion, the big mountain that the temple would be on, and that's where New Jerusalem would come down, and probably there'd be a bridge going across, or it touches, but 1,500 miles by 1,500 miles and 1,500 miles high if it came down on the earth, it would crush everybody's houses, the agriculture, it doesn't make sense. So it's probably up there. So that becomes the highest mountain in the world, and the valleys are filled and the mountains made low. And that's the new heavens and the new earth, and that's just before New Jerusalem comes down. Because it's not going to come down in a defiled place, with all the blood and all the, abominations that the people had and so forth. And the kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth. And hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. Hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. Well, it's not, I do not think this is the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds. I think this is the return of Yeshua without Jehovah coming down. But when Yeshua goes into New Jerusalem, so does the glory of God of Israel, and they both sit there enthroned. So, from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, I think, is the glory of God of Israel, and from the wrath of the Lamb would be also Yeshua, unless they both reference Yeshua. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? So this is the great day of the Lord, not the day of vengeance. This is the great day of the Lord, the end of the tribulation, the end of Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog apparently coincide with the tribulation. So this would be what that is. So if we're going to glean from this, we're going to see a lot of war and a lot of famine and stuff like that coming. But we're not going to be that affected here in Israel. We're going to have plenty to eat, and the world's going to suffer. And that's why they're going to be coming to Israel, to carry the Israelites here, which would probably include the true believers, because they're going to be, arise, shine, your light has come. They'll be glowing like Moses did when they see Yeshua and receive eternal life, and they'll come here. They'll carry him here and bring him here as an offering unto the Lord. And then they'll want to stay here as slaves or servants, because there's going to be food and water and a nice peaceful life here, and they have nothing to go back to. So that's the way they treated the Israelites, and it'll happen to them. The difference being, they treated the Israelites like garbage most of the time when they lived in these countries and worked for them. They practically always took their wealth and riches and persecuted them and threw them out. Rarely would they let them leave with their wealth and stuff like that. The ones that got out early when they saw the trouble coming, normally would get out with their wealth. In Poland, like Warsaw and places like that before Hitler hit them, they were living pretty good. The Jews were pharmacists, doctors, alternative medicine, lawyers, bankers, antique dealers, lots of things. They had been there a long time. They were making money. They had owned nice houses. They had apartments there. They weren't like the apartments you're used to You know, they had multi-room apartments that were built in big, solid, older buildings with a lot of wood, you know, and they had good food. And they had their community, they had their rabbis and synagogues and Kabbalah and Talmud and all of that stuff with it. And there was no Israel to go to like 1939 or anything like that. And they saw persecution, and you know, they didn't leave, and they got caught in the war, and then they all thought somebody was going to come help them, and nobody really came for a long time. And then Hitler started spreading his attacks in other countries rapidly, too rapidly for his own good. So they were living in Europe rather well, seriously. They were well educated. They pursued professional careers and had businesses. And they were living in comfort and peace, and then it happened. Because they were not living according to the ways of Jehovah, according to the law. They were living according to what they wanted. You know, a lot of them had all this modernism at the time, you know. They didn't have an internet, they didn't have cable TV, they didn't even have TV. So the people you know, they weren't playing computer games and stuff like that back then. So they got involved in a lot of philosophical things, hard sciences, chemistry, bio, you know, physics, and you know, they got into stuff like this instead. Or else, what are you going to do? Sit around and watch the grass grow, you know? And this is a lot of things the way that happened to them, you know. When they lived in Russia, they lived there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they never really worked their way up the totem pole, so to speak, over there. They were never allowed to, you know. But they formed little villages they lived in, they called them shuttles. And they were poor. They were never allowed to rise up. They really weren't getting educated. Okay, they weren't in Russia. They weren't the pharmacists, the lawyers, the doctors, you know, the chemists. This wasn't them. They were, you know, with goats and sheep and cows and you know, growing stuff. They hand to mouth existence, you know. And they were getting suppressed worse and worse by the Tsar. And then he started doing the pogroms where the army and the soldiers and probably the redneck type people that hated the Jews would come and wreck their stuff, bust the houses, the windows, and you know, things like that, break the synagogue up. And then after enough of that, a lot of them just packed up and left. They left everything behind. And they just went. That's what's the story of my grandparents. And they came to America. So it was, you know, they came before World War II. And some came in the late 1800s even. A lot of them, you know, accumulated in Boston had a bunch. New York had a ton of them. Not much else on the East Coast, and they then migrated into places like Chicago, Atlanta. Miami was not, there was nothing really going on in Miami in the early 1900s. It started, had a little popularity as people going from New York area, you know, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, New Jersey, down to Florida in the winter. It started in the 20s after World War One. They started running cruise ships from, oh, they probably left mostly from New York, maybe some other east, northeast ports, and they would sail down to Miami. Some took the train, then went to Miami area to get away from the winter. Um, and they had hotels in the beach, and they would go there for however long they were going to go. Some, if they could afford it, would go down there for the winter. I had a friend when I was in grade school. His father was doing well in the toy business, and he would only go to school in New York. He would come to New York around Easter, April maybe, and they would spend the spring and the summer in New York. And then I used to get along with the guy. His name was Lewis, I think. I thought he was a nice kid, and then he used to disappear. I don't know, I have a friend who's never here. They would leave, I think, around October sometime, maybe mid-October. So he would only be in school for a month or so, and then they went back to Florida. So they wintered in Florida. We have people in the family that did that are still alive, I think, but I think they just live in Florida now. Not the immediate family, But that was a luxurious lifestyle if you could afford it, that you would winter. If you lived in New York, you'd winter in Florida. What a lot of I don't know if it still goes on, back in the 60s and 70s, people that were prospering in Manhattan and had the ability to do it would, they'd go into the office Friday morning and clear up what they needed to do. And then, early afternoon, probably 12, 1 o'clock, they would take a flight. You could go to the Pan Am building which was near 42nd Street area. And you just took the elevator up and you got on a helicopter that took you to the airport. It was 10, 15 minute, I think 15-minute ride to the airport. So you had no traffic jams. So they would helicopter to the airport. And then they would get on their flight to Miami, which was about 2.5 hours. So they'd be in Miami the late afternoon, right? So they probably, by the time they got to their apartment or hotel, and unpacked, it would be kind of like the sun would probably be going down, unless it was maybe, late March or something like that. The sun would probably be going down and they probably wouldn't hit the beach, but they could go sit on the balcony or sit outside in the hotel near the pool in the evening, have a nice dinner, walk around outside, warm up, right? A lot of the people had a sniffle or a residual cough from having colds in the winter in New York, So the next morning they'd wake up and boom, they'd be out at the beach, getting the sun. They'd be out in the sun all day. Sunday, the same thing, and then either Sunday night or Monday morning, they'd fly home. A lot of them came back Sunday night. They'd get in late. Go to sleep, wake up, and go to work on Monday. And, that was fortunate. Now, some of the people that were even more fortunate would shove off Thursday after work, so they'd get in Thursday night, and they would have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and fly up Monday morning early, so they'd get in the office at 11 o'clock or something like that, right? So they'd have Friday, Saturday, have 3 days in the sun, so they would get a tan that would probably last at least 4 or 5 weeks because they were out in the sun all day. And that was prestigious to run around Manhattan in the winter with a suntan. And they would burn out all their, they heal up from the lousy weather and the coughing and the cold, There was no COVID and things like that. They were just simple infections people got. And, if they got out of New York and they were in the good weather outside, going in the ocean, and, they'd get a lot better. And a lot of these people would do that once a month. So they would keep their tan. Some would go more than that, So that was, because in New York, in the winter, 80% of the days are nasty. I mean, it's a depressing place, you know, in my book. In the spring and the summer, even in the fall, New York is really nice. In the fall, the weather's kind of enjoyable because you got to wear light jackets and maybe a hat or something, but so the weather itself is not bad, but you know what's coming, and that's depressing. You know what's coming, so you don't like that. But springtime in New York and summertime is really nice. It really is. But I don't know what it's like anymore. I'm going back, I don't know, half a century or something, It was really not, in my parents' day, and I think maybe when I was a baby it still went on, but I have no recollection of this. The subways, were, when my parents were teenagers and young, the subways were above ground even in Midtown Manhattan, Times Square and stuff like that. Some of it was underground, and it was still, some of the lines were still above ground. And what they would do, I think, starting around, I don't know when they started it, probably late May or early May or something, they would take the roofs off the subway cars, where they had subway cars without roofs. I don't know what it was. Probably they removed it. And you had outside subway cars. They had walls, so they didn't want people falling off, But the roof would be gone. So people would take subway rides and sit there, take their shirt off, lay out there, and get a suntan while we're riding on the subway. And I never experienced that, but I heard it was really nice. My parents talked about it, and they really thought that was enjoyable. If you went from the Bronx to Coney Island, you have probably an hour and a half, 2 hour subway ride, and you could get a tan on the way down there, But you just burn. But so they did that. They also had, I believe, a long time ago in the 20s and the 30s, they had open upper. I think they had buses with 2 levels, and the upper level would be open on some buses in the warm weather. And then they had streetcars. That I should have remembered it, but I don't. They were around when I was a little kid, a real little kid, like before I went to school. But they had streetcars, and I don't know why they got rid of them. I really don't understand why they did it, but they did, and they just went to buses. But they probably should have stayed with the streetcars, but they didn't. So anyway, trivia about New York. San Francisco, I think, to this day, still has the streetcars, and I lived there for a number of years. They were quite convenient, They were electric, and they were pretty good. Now, I remember getting on buses in San Francisco when I go home from graduate school. I would take the Sacramento Street bus, and it went up the hills in Nob Hill. And if there were too many people on it, the bus driver would get a bunch of us to go off the bus, and there would be another bus that he would get on the radio with or something that would appear right behind us that was rather empty. So, he'd try to get 15, 20 people to get off and then get on the next bus. Right next, he'd pull right behind us and just go on that bus. It couldn't make it up the hill. Couldn't get the bus to go up the hill. Where the cable cars always went up. I used to take the cable cars to school. I lived on Nob Hill, which I was a student in graduate school, and it was affordable. And I mean, I lived on Nob Hill, not the, the bad part of Nob Hill. I lived right up on California Street by Jones, by near California, well, in California, just off Jones. That was like cat's meow, Nob Hill. And I used to just run out my door. I'd see the cable car, I'd jump on the thing, take it down to the bottom of Market Street, and then walk to school. And it was 25 cents each way. I used to use it for regular transportation along with a lot of other people. And coming home and do the same thing. Now, sometimes it'd be pretty cold on that thing at night in the rain. You'd have to stand inside, and it was a very small area inside. And sometimes if it was crowded, which didn't affect me because I wasn't going to school in rush hour. But if you were trying to rush hour, you probably couldn't get inside. You'd have to stay outside, and you know. Now they charge $5 each way to get on the cable car. $5. See, tourism, cities that focus on tourism make a small percentage of the city very rich that invest in tourism, that lobby or corrupt the government to throw things their way. So the regular working people in the city suffer because the city deteriorates before their very eyes. They start with alternate side of street parking and street sweeping, which is a joke. They don't really do much good of anything. And starting with parking tickets, and then starting with traffic jams, and it just starts getting worse and worse, and then crime goes up and it gets worse and worse. San Francisco had, for many years, going back, I would say, starting mostly, I guess, in maybe the very late 60s or probably the 70s, started using prostitution for tourism. And it was gay prostitution, a lot of it. And you'd see young boys out on the streets soliciting, and the police wouldn't do a thing about it. I mean, you'd see 14-year-old boys, and police wouldn't do a thing about it. And then they had home delivery of such youthful prostitutes, So this was drawing gay people in from around the world to go there and have this sick experience that they valued. And that was a problem. And then they had the massage parlors, and it was just escort services, and they built the prostitution industry up, and that of course attracted all the wrong people. They wanted to live there. It just was just so bad. And then in the middle of this, you had the Chinese people from Hong Kong that wanted to get the heck out of there before the communists took over, which was in '88. So they started flooding in the 60s, knowing they had to leave, and they didn't contribute to crime or anything. They just lived in their own communities and invested in real estate heavily and drove the real estate prices up. And it just does a, it became a tourist destination, and the Chinese people figured out how to cement themselves in, and they did. But those that were able to buy the real estate when it was affordable were the only ones that really benefited. The others, I don't think, were able to live there. And it just became a real, look what it is today. It's absolutely, instead of saying if you're going to San Francisco, wear flowers in your hair, you should say if you're going to San Francisco, bring some razor blades in your hair, because it's a real dangerous place. It's just deteriorated. They just ran it into the ground. The people that made the money off the tourism, the hotels, the motels, the restaurants, the Geodeli Square, the Cannery, Pier 39, all of this made fortunes off of this, the people that owned the shops and restaurants in Sausalito, and you know, people servicing the airport, you know, with going back and forth buses and cars and stuff. They made a fortune on it, you know, but they just absolutely ruined what used to be a beautiful city. It was just a great city. You'd go to sleep at night, it'd be cool, and you'd hear the foghorns blowing from the ships. It was nice. You know, as the years rolled on, it never got quiet at night. It was noisy and loud at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, just like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But you know, if you went back 1970, 71, you know, at 11, 12 o'clock at night, it got quite quiet, you know. And the police were pretty conscientious, and, you know, and it just became, I don't know why, it seems that the bad ones find the beautiful places to live, and they take them over, and they did that with San Francisco. And they just ruined what was a great place. You were able to drive down to Santa Cruz and back, go to the Pacific Coast. You could go to Lake Tahoe and go skiing. There was a million things to do there, you know. And, you know, they had this jogging path at the marina. I used to run 3 miles, and there was a way you'd run 4 miles too, depending. Usually I ran 3. And, you know, women started getting raped on, they would come home from work in the winter, and they would run down 5:30, 6:30 and do jogging. It was dark, and they were getting raped on the jogging trail, you know. So how do you stop that? It's easy. You get a couple of motor scooters and you have the cops ride around. Did they ever do that? No. No. Yeah. Let me look at the live stream. I have a lot of favorite pizzas. It's not the correct Yom Kippur. This is the rabbi's version of the date. It's incorrect. It's not the real holiday. Well, I look like an old Marx the Great. Well, I thank you guys for putting negative comments up in the live stream, because it helps me with the algorithm with YouTube, because it shows interaction. So yeah, it's good. It's good. Nice. You could also hit the thumbs down button. I don't care if you hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down. That shows interaction too. So I'd appreciate it if you guys hit the thumbs up. But if you haters want to hit the thumbs down, I'd appreciate that too, because it's still interaction. So I hope it helped you. I can't dot all the I's and cross all the T's on Rev.6. We're not given the details. Okay? And we could assume that all these critters, these things we see in the different seals are countries, and they may not be. They may be spiritual entities. Or we don't know what it is. It could be a country. Maybe it isn't a country. I don't know. It could be a conglomerate of countries. I don't know. But I think I gave you a good idea where we're at, because we're shown the consequences of these things when the seals are open, and I think I could show you pretty much where we're at about now. Okay, so I will keep you updated as to what happens with Iran and their cyber attack. We'll know a lot more tonight when Israel comes back to life, and and I'll be able to pick up some more intel and find out what happened, and I'll put it up on Telegram. So I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife. Pray for our peace, calm, rest, joy. Pray for us to sleep good. Pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for our finances, which could use it. And pray for better videos. Pray for the peace of Yerushalayim. And Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. So I came in at about 2 hours today, not bad. So it'll take you about 2 seconds to hit the thumbs up button, and you haters can hit the thumbs down button because that helps me just as much because it's interaction. And thank you haters for posting in the chat because that helps me too with interaction. Okay, kids, I'm out. Thank you.